I'm with Terry Huval, and I'm going to ask him to introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Terry Huval. I'm the Director of Utilities for the Lafayette Utility System in Lafayette, Louisiana. And we're the entity that's put together the LUS Fiber program, which we just started serving customers from last month.
So, can you tell us how the project originated and what drove you to want to offer that to the Lafayette people?
The Lafayette Utility System is a community-owned utility system. It's a government-owned utility system that people voted for many, many years ago. And so our job is to make sure we're listening to our citizens and to our businesses as to what it is that they want from our utility system. And during that process, we kept hearing more and more that they wanted to have competitive telecommunications opportunities. In the meantime, as a utility system, we need to make some upgrades to some internal communication systems for our electrical substations to be able to provide the type of reliability our consumers have been used to receiving from us. As a result, we built a fiber optic ring in the community, about 65 miles of it initially in the late 90s. Began using that ring also for providing service to governmental entities in our area, as well as opening it up to the private sector to sell on a wholesale basis, where we sold broadband connectivity in the community and internet connectivity to companies who would resell those services in addition to the services that they provided to business entities in the community. That was a successful venture. In 2004, we decided to embark on providing a fiber to the home and business enterprise. Went through a market survey at that time, went through considerable pushback from the private telephone and cable companies in our area, trying to pass laws that would stop us from doing it, passing laws that made it more difficult for us to do it, suing us, forcing us to have a public election, which people in our city voted 62% to 38% in favor of the project. Then those private companies sued us again. Then they found somebody to sue us on their behalf until ultimately in February of 2007, some 3 years after we announced the project, we got a affirmative vote from the Louisiana State Supreme Court, a 7-0 slam dunk vote, as a matter of fact. That opened the doors for us to be able to move forward, to borrow money for the project, which we did using tax-exempt municipal bonds. That funding took place in July of 2007. Then we began designing the project and began providing construction on the project in February of 2008. And in February of 2009, we began serving our first customer. Our plans are to serve customers at rates that are about 20% less than the standard rates offered by our competitors, with capabilities, especially on the internet side, that far exceed perhaps anyone else in the United States. We're offering 10 megabits per second peer-to-peer for less than 10 megabits per second upload and download for less than $28 a month. 50 megabits per second upload and download for less than $58 a month. Plus, we have 100 megabit per second peer-to-peer available to all our customers. So no matter what service you buy from us to connect to the big internet hub, that within the city of Lafayette, you have the opportunity to transfer data at 100 megabits per second to another LUS fiber customer. So it's an exciting time for our community. It's also a lot of work, but it's been a good 5 years now that since we announced this project, and it's good to see it finally on the ground running.
How many homes does the network ultimately look to pass or connect?
We have 120,000 people in Lafayette. That correlates to about 60,000 homes and businesses. Our business plan is based on a 50% penetration rate, remembering that when we did our customer survey, we had about 70% of our customers saying they were interested in our services. So we felt 50% was probably a good mark, because that's what we had to borrow money for to help us support that. Our break even in the project is about 23%, so we have quite a bit of safety factor in the financial model.
In your presentation this morning, you hinted at a next generation of services that you want to be able to provide to the people in Lafayette. Can you give us maybe just a quick overview of what these could be, and especially of how you plan to get there?
Yeah, we see two basic fundamental additions to our fiber project once we kind of get through and get the momentum going and providing services on the fiber to the home project. And one of those is develop a citywide wireless system. We already have probably 25 different wireless units in the city that we're using for just municipal government purposes. But our intention is ultimately to have the city blanketed with a wireless cloud that will provide about 90% capability for people to be able to access the wireless. So we think that's certainly a very convenient factor, as well as perhaps lower the cost to introduce internet into homes that have had difficult times in affording the cost of internet. The second thing we have in mind is that being we are an electric utility system, we are looking at providing a smart grid or smart utility infrastructure, which provides for remote meter reading, which provides for outage management. So when a customer's lights are out, we know their lights are out, so can even initiate communication with the customer to let them know that's the case. We can provide information to customers to help them better manage their utility usage. We'll start using time of use rates to let customers take advantage of times of the day when the power is much cheaper than other times, and having their appliances be able to come on. And just a variety of things that can break out of that down the road, especially with some of the efforts of the stimulus bill in Congress and some of the, I think, inventions that will be coming on down the road. So we want to begin having that direct communications link so we can provide those advanced electrical and water services to customers.
Okay. And maybe just as a last question, I mean, in many ways, Lafayette is the first relatively large city where this is happening. I imagine that a lot of people are looking at what you're doing as maybe, to learn lessons on how they could do it elsewhere. I guess there's two questions there. One of them is, does your legal case actually, will it actually help others to get through the same issues faster because of the precedent that it creates? And also, what would be your top three advice to any other muni around the world in terms of, what should you or should you not do?
Sure. Well, in doing our due diligence of this project, we looked at other communities, specifically Bristol, Virginia, Dalton, Georgia, and Jackson, Tennessee, because they had already begun their fiber to the home efforts. Bristol, Virginia is about 1/4 the size of Lafayette. Jackson, Tennessee is about 1/2 the size of Lafayette. So it does make Lafayette the largest city at this particular point, providing the triple play fiber to the home type of infrastructure. In our case, we had to go through a long haul legally in our state. I think it's going to be difficult for anyone to jump into this without having themselves prepared. What we would suggest anyone who's looking at this to do is to do their own due diligence, make sure their community is really interested in them providing this, and then come to locations like Lafayette, like Bristol, like Dalton, like Jackson, and talk to their operations people and find out how the system works, what has been the challenges associated with it, what are some good pieces of advice to be able to learn from it. Those pieces of advice then and even now have benefited us considerably from those that have been there before, because this is indeed a new business for us. But we do think it breaks into a really exciting opportunity for everyone. Some of the challenges I would ask people to look at, besides knowing if your community wants this, your business community, your council members or your board of directors, making sure that you're walking with them step by step and helping them to understand why this is important for your community. The second thing is to make sure that it's maybe the selling point is selling it to the media, getting the media to understand, letting the media do their due diligence to find out how these things have worked elsewhere. When you finally get to the point of having the authority to move forward with the project, is get a good consultant to work with you who has a successful track record. We have one that's worked with us from the beginning of this project and works with us every day to help make sure that we haven't missed any points that in our newness to this enterprise that we would otherwise have missed. We go through requests for proposals, we go through requests for quotations, we make each of these vendors sell their products to make sure we tie these things down to a high degree of what we're expecting, so that there's no loss of communication in the process. I think hiring this first consultant that I commented on is really, really essential, because if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself making assumptions that you should have made, and as a result, missing some of your targets.
Okay, Terry, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.